You aren't afraid. Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
Very some of the often founded.
Broadcasting live from our home in Venice, California, this is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our producer, Michael, and today we will be talking to our friends Hillary Stone and Jessica Kutel of Mystic Mitten Paranormal, a female-led paranormal investigative team based out of St. Clair Shores, Michigan, who we've talked to in the past. So we're very excited to talk to them again and catch up with them. But before we get going, Michael has some announcements.
Yeah, hi there, everyone. We've got all kinds of great stuff coming up. We've got next week, our new friend Karen will be here to talk about goddesses and gods of Avalon, the Avalon Pantheon and Celtic Pantheon, and she's been studying that for many years and doing workshops and classes, so it'll be a lot of fun. And of course, you know, I'm from a very Celtic background, so I'll have to perhaps break out the kilt for that one. But we're really looking forward to that, and it's going to be exciting for me for sure. And then the following week, our good friend Zalima is returning, and she's going to be talking about some protection spells and magic that we can do. And of course, with the pandemic, good timing on that. We want all you guys to stay safe, and anything we can do to protect us and our loved ones is probably a very good idea. You know, we've got all kinds of things happening, so check out our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SIXTH, all spelled out. While you're there, at the bottom right of menu on the bottom right, you can buy us a coffee with Ko-Fi. So if you're enjoying the show, you want to kick us in a couple bucks, it's awesome. It helps us to cover our production costs and so forth. So for the price of a cup of coffee, and as I say, being Canadian, you can always buy me a coffee. That's something that I very much appreciate. And we're just having a lot of fun. We'll be glad when we get back to our studios. I think that doing things from home is its own unique challenge when it comes to a lot of the tech stuff and tight quarters. So we're definitely looking back to getting our studio back, but we encourage you guys, you know, don't play games with this thing. This is a very serious illness, and we want everyone to be safe. So, you know, respect the social distancing and stay home and do what you need to do to take care of you and your loved ones. So with that, I'm going to get it kicked back to Krista, and we're really excited to have Hillary and Jessica back for another visit. So take it away, Krista.
Great. Thank you, Michael. So welcome, Hillary. Welcome, Jessica. How are you both?
We're doing great. We are so excited to be back on. We've been looking forward to this all week. This has been a little glimmer of hope in our boring lockdown times here. So we're thrilled to be back.
That's great. So that was Hillary. I can't see you two. Michael can, but was that Hillary?
Yes.
So how are you doing, Jessica?
I'm doing good. Using this time to work on little projects around the house, as well as it's been a really good time for Hillary and I to just kind of go and digest everything that we've accomplished over the past few months, and really just kind of work full steam ahead and get everything all wrapped up and finalized, and it's really exciting.
That's great. Well, the last time we talked to you was actually a little while ago. I looked it up, it was December at the end of the year. So I assume you have been up to quite a few things since then. So what adventures have you been having since then?
You know, a lot of, we have been doing a lot of kind of, I don't know, what we would call behind the scenes type work over the past couple months. We had some footage and some investigations that we did towards the end of the summer last year that required a lot of review time. I think that's something that maybe people don't realize or kind of forget is a huge part of, you know, producing paranormal investigation content is the review, going through the footage and the audio and finding out if, you know, we found anything interesting, and even just kind of putting together our story of, you know, like our traveling time and the trip and who we met. And so we've been doing a lot of work related to that. We've also got our podcast, new podcast kicked off. So we've been able to work on that over the past couple months too. And that's been kind of fun.
Yeah, we're going to get to that too. I'm really happy for you both. That's a good point that you bring up about paranormal work. As you may know, I think we've mentioned it. We have several friends that are deeply invested in paranormal work, and that's how we got kind of drawn into one of our friends, Jeff. And he has so much footage that he can't even get to it all. So do you have any advice about how to, work with the amount that many paranormal teams take, because you just had to let things run for so long? Do you have a method of sort of tackling that?
What we've actually been doing, and now is a really great time for us to use these tools that we've discovered how useful Skype and Zoom have been. So we've been using that to go through and review our footage together simultaneously from the comfort and safety of our own homes too, which is really awesome. So using each other as a tool to stay motivated to chug through the whole process, it's very lengthy. And it can be boring at times too, but going through together, Hillary and I both sit down at the same time and we review it and we're listening to it simultaneously. And that helps us stay motivated and on track to get it completed.
Yes, that's a good point about the boredom factor, but that's probably true of any kind of editing work. And though you can get into the zone, I notice sometimes, when you're working on things like that.
Absolutely. It's, the fun thing, and that's been kind of maybe I hate to say it, but positive thing to kind of come out of the way things have changed for us too, in realizing that we enjoy reviewing and working on the editing stuff together. So where I, have previously done a lot of it on my computer alone, particularly the video editing, it's way more fun. And there's a whole different dynamic when we're able to do stuff together. Before, we used to kind of divide everything up. Like Jessica would take a certain chunk of audio files and I would take a chunk of audio files, and we would go through those alone. And some of those things we still too, it's just because there's so much, it's like homework. Like, you take this bit home for a bit and I'll work on this and we'll meet back in the middle and share our findings. But that is one of the nice things about having, a partner who is so equally invested in this stuff too, because it is tedious, very boring work. And often you're sitting and listening to silence, or you're watching a gray video screen where nothing's happening for 45 minutes. And it's definitely more fun to do that with a friend.
Oh, I bet. I'm not very patient when I've gone on to investigation sites with people. And because it's so dark, and maybe because I wasn't getting enough sleep, I'd find myself like falling asleep. And I was like, no, I got to wake up. I'm going to miss the best part. Of course, the recordings help, that if you do miss something, then you see it. But you're working literally in the dark a lot.
Yep.
So absolutely. So do you find that by doing the review that you sometimes find, surprising things, or is it mostly what, you've sort of expected from the actual investigation?
I think there's sometimes a little bit of both. Certain times, like, we'll experience something in real time that we're really excited to see, what we're able to capture, through the video and through audio recordings at that moment. But other times we find little hidden gems like EVPs, things that we didn't notice were happening in real time, but we go back and we discover it. Or sometimes too, that's really useful, is we've started to kind of put together almost like a case file, where we're documenting every single word that, comes from the spirit box, and every single thing and every small little minute detail, because that might eventually be part of a bigger puzzle. A bigger picture that we might not even notice until we have all those pieces spelled out in front of us.
Wow, that's pretty ambitious to document all the different words. And has that have you found that fruitful?
It's been very interesting. I think even just from, trying to understand the tools that we're using better and get a better look or an understanding of the human element in using something like a spirit box too, because we've been using this technique. It's called the Estus Method. It's kind of a popular technique right now too, where you use this particular set of headphones intended for drummers. So these isolation headphones, and you plug it directly into the spirit box. And instead of letting it play out for the group to hear, you have one person who's intensely focused on what's coming through and kind of acting as a human channel. And so Jessica is a very good little model of this experiment. And it's been interesting too, to kind of look at the long list of everything that she says and every single word, and look and see if it's, oh, that might've been some commercial, or, oh, but this word keeps coming through, and that's not a word that, should be coming through on the radio. That's interesting. Is at least where we started with it. And most recently it's kind of grown into, we realize that like every thing that comes through, whether we realize it or not in the moment, can later become relevant, or like Jessica said, a piece of a puzzle. So rather than looking at the places we visit, or the cases as we're calling them that we work on, as an individualized thing, we're kind of looking at, we're looking at it as people who are coming in and working on a project that other people have also worked on too. And this is our contribution. These were our experiments. These are our notes. This is what we found. What do you find? So it's a collaborative kind of way of looking at it, I think.
And one thing that's kind of interesting, since we've started documenting it and kind of looking at it in a different light compared to what we've done previously, is we're finding things that are coming through that might not necessarily pertain to that location, but might pertain to us individually that we didn't realize at that time. So that's kind of part of the bigger picture, is that, maybe just because we have the device in and we're focusing in on it at that specific time and location, the location might not mean so much necessarily, because sometimes other things might be coming through, messages for Hillary or myself, or somebody else too.
Can you give me an example of that?
Oh, that's a good one.
I'll put you on the spot.
So there was one where it was in regards to Hillary, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a vehicle that had a significant meaning to Hillary, that I was, we were at the Michigan Theater in Jackson. And one of the things that I blurted out during the Estus Method didn't have any relevance at all to the theater. However, looking back at it, it has very strong, significant meaning in memory for Hillary.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's odd. One of the things that I've been noticing, and even, during this time where we've been able to go back and look at some of our old footage and review some of our old, video and stuff like that, and rethink some of the experiences we've had too. It's an interesting observation I've made, and this is just my personal opinion. We've kind of gone into a lot of these investigations and a lot of these situations just because we were kind of new to this too, and also we didn't know what to do, but with a very open, not pointed kind of energy. And so we were, we kind of go into these places. It's like, hello, anyone who's here, step forward and talk to us and interact with us. And what we've kind of realized is that, oh, there's this interesting layer of either backstory or research that we can do to kind of point some of that investigation, because otherwise anybody can pop in. We had a case we were working on in a restaurant one time where we were trying to communicate with the spirit, with this person who worked there and had these very intense experiences and heard her name whispered and all kinds of stuff. And when we got there, it seemed like her family members were far more interested in using the opportunity, using me and Jessica and the spirit box to communicate with her, rather than, have the whole thing turn out in the, historical. We thought we were going to talk to this old timey ghost and whatever. So it's kind of interesting. So we have new ground to cover as far as like, should we like ask some more pointed questions, ask for specific people to step forward? Now that we know it works, it's kind of like a new deal.
That's a really good point, because there's pros and cons with that. So in one sense, going in very open, you're simply allowing whatever's there to appear. And I remember Craig Owens talking about, not having sort of a set opinion about it's this particular ghost. It was one, I forget, it was in the last show he was talking about, everyone thought it was like either a man or woman, and it turned out to be the opposite. And it was only because he really just wanted to know the truth about the situation and not, kind of mold it into either the myth or the history. Or my experience of going to like seances, there's always a couple people that want to talk to their family members, even if they don't say it. So, I mean, it would be the same, I guess, if you're working with any kind of ghost experience.
Absolutely, which we've actually had a couple very interesting experiences with people. Well, we did a public investigation at the Anatomy of Death Museum in Mount Clemens, Michigan last year, October. And I think we might have talked about it the last time we were on too, so I won't get too off in the weeds with it. But we had, we approached the public investigation of this space a little differently than we would have, like a a big historic home or something like that. It was a small place and we were focused more on the artifacts. And so what we had decided to do was bring all of our tools and invite the public to come and kind of get a hands-on close-up look and have an opportunity to use some of these tools and see, talk about energy attachments or the energy involved in, artifacts and objects and look at some of these human bones. And there was a point where Jessica went off actually with a family and they used one of the spirit boxes to connect with a family member. And I thought that was very interesting.
And did it seem?
Go
ahead.
Mother and her daughter, and I believe her niece that had come along, and there's some history to the building in which the museum is located as well. So we were trying to, originally we started trying to communicate to who the owners of the museum believe is still lingering around, and the conversation definitely started swaying, referencing songs that had a significant meaning to the mother in regards to her late husband. And, little nicknames and pet names that he had for his daughter were coming through very clearly as well. So it was, the setting that we were in, it didn't matter, but it was because who we were with, the spirits were able to use the tools to communicate in a different way that they've never been able to do so before with their loved ones, which is really, really special and very, very emotional for all of us who were there, including myself, just sitting there and watching it all happen and seeing their reactions in real time as we're having these conversations with her late husband.
That is really special and very meaningful for people when they get to experience it directly. I think it's a wonderful thing that can happen if you let it happen. So it sounds like you're both have that, Zen mind, beginner's mind, which is something we're supposed to maintain as we get better at things. And many of us that become more expert at our field, we forget that kind of open, childlike wonder that is essential even as we get to know things more deeply.
I think there's an importance in that too. Hillary and I, at least I like to think of us as fun, personable, approachable people. And we're very outgoing, we're friendly. And I think going into a case that helps too, because, being a more approachable and friendly and a fun person in real life, the spirits see that as well. So I think, we like to say that we're lucky, but I think it's, us just having that young, fun spirit that you're talking about and having that, the glimmer and the sparkle and the magic of it all that we're so fascinated with makes the spirits more willing to reach out to us.
I think that's very true. And I'm always taken a little aback when, there's a ghost investigator that basically is like, I'm tough and I'm going to kick your butt to the spirits. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really work in life much. So I'm not sure it's going to work in death even. I forgot I was watching something and saw that happen. So let's jump ahead a little bit and talk about your podcast that you both started in, was it April you started?
Yeah. So there, there are so many fun little conversations that we have, like either on the phone or, in the car. And there have been so many moments where I think to myself, oh my God, we should be recording this. This is so funny. I bet you somebody, at least like 2 people would think that this is funny and want to listen to it. So, I think it's been really fun for us. And we are finding ourselves, it was like, there's a little learning curve, like hooking it up, because it was like adding a whole new element to our, like the complications. Stuff's already complicated, all this, with our case studies, and we're doing all these things. And then it's like, all right, let's learn how to do a podcast. But we're really enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun so far. And we're finding a little groove with it. It's a great way for us to get weekly content out. And my favorite element, I think, is that we're trying to kind of conjure an environment of like feeling like you're hanging out with us and kind of give people an idea of what it's like to, have the lifestyle, I guess, if you will, that we have and what it's really like to, be 2 women and be this into paranormal stuff and be running our own paranormal organizations. Fun.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think our podcast, it gives the listeners really a different perspective into the lives of Hillary and I. It's unfiltered. We say it's 18 and up. We're using our slightly more foul mouth than you'd see on our YouTube channel. or our own Facebooks or even our Facebook page. So it's kind of a little bit more unfiltered, a little bit more real us. And Hillary and I, like she mentioned, we do have really great conversations that are very funny and very entertaining, at least to us. So it's really cool that we're able to share those with others, and hope that they find it as equally entertaining as we do.
I listened to the first one and a lot of the second. I really liked the titles. The first episode was The Elevator Dream, and the second one, Goblins of the Sioux. Is that how you say it? SOO?
Yes.
So in the first one, it was interesting to hear. It definitely was more relaxed, and you're talking about a variety of things. But one of the things that we do know about both of you is that you collect photographs, and there was I know you were Jessica was sharing her ideas about archiving, and recently I was like many people cleaning out things in the pandemic. It's a good time to go deep into the closets, and I found old letters from when I was like in third grade, and some of them, by the way, are from Michigan where we lived.
Oh,
and I actually decided to read some of them. And they're so cute because we're such little girls, it's just little girl letters. And, I had one friend of mine in high school, that was a little later, and she would pass notes to me all the time about our crushes. And she would write long, like 3 pages. and I was just getting such a kick out of it. And I decided to look into how can I preserve them better so they don't disintegrate. So I'm interested in myself now into just archiving my own stuff. But maybe you'd like to share a little bit about your thoughts about why you're both interested in archiving, and any kind of tips people have for archiving, whether it's because of the paranormal, like you guys, or just for their own sake.
So I personally, I enjoy old photographs, old documents, marriage licenses, any sort of old paper. Ultimately, we're really lucky here in Michigan because our climate kind of allows for that. It's not super humid, so paper products do seem to last a pretty long time here in our state. But there's so many reasons why I'm so passionate about it. I could go on about it forever, so I'll try to be short and sweet. Ultimately, I enjoy old photographs because back in the day, old pictures cost a lot of money to have those pictures taken, and you could go your whole life and never have a photograph of you taken. So a lot of times people would pay to have a postmortem photo taken, so that way there would be at least something for the family to hold on to in a remembrance of their late loved one. But there's also a lot of magic to it when like I'm going to estate sales and antique stores, and like right now I'm more so like looking on like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace for free photos, because some people like don't care to hang on to them. So I'm kind of like the mama hen. I go and I rescue all of these like unwanted photographs, and I frame them and I hang them up in our office, and I put them in albums, and I give them an appropriate home, because even if it's a picture of a dog or a thing, like someone took that picture with meaning and with purpose. And being a photographer myself, I'm just incredibly passionate about it. I know Hillary, she actually just got her hands on a scanner for us, so that way we'll be able to start scanning in high resolution copies. So that way we'll be able to have a digital archive of our pictures and our documents as well.
That is just so cool. And I have seen some of your photographs, and they are really cool. But it's really, it makes sense that somebody that would be interested in, ghosts and the spirits of the past could possibly be collecting as well, whether it's photographs or objects but have you found you have a connection to any of the photographs, or do you feel anything from that in terms of a spirit?
So I guess for me to start, there's 2 photographs in particular that I would describe as having like conscious energetic attachments. They're very early on. When Jessica and I first started making videos, we sat down, she had first gotten a PSP7 spirit box. We sat in my basement, and I had just gotten this package from an antiquer on Instagram, and I had purchased this photo that I was very drawn to online. I was like, I'm going to get her. There's something about her, this lady, that's so attractive. I just need her. And so Jessica and I were doing this session in my basement, and I had forgotten about this package upstairs, but I had known that the woman in the photograph's name was Libby, because on the back of this photo, we were very lucky, it had her name on it. It said Elizabeth and her last name, and then Libby would have been her nickname. So Jessica and I are doing this spirit box session, and it seems like somebody's starting to come through, and we're getting excited, and then I hear it's Libby. Like, we're asking, who are we talking to? Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, Jessica, I have this picture upstairs. Let me go get it. So I ran upstairs to go get the picture, brought it back down. And then we had this whole there was a couple more things that came through. We were very jazzed on that. And then there was another photograph where I had bought this Victorian album where somebody had just kind of stuffed the antique store, just stuffed some extra photos in this family album just to kind of fill it out or who knows. And, it seemed like coming through the spirit box, there was this other person who was like, hey, you're talking to this lady in this photo. Hey, talk to me. And I just had this intuitive feeling. I'm like, there's these loose photos in here. I'm just going to get this Victorian album out and start flipping through it. And we're like, let us know when we get to your photo, like say something. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but again, through the spirit box, this signal stops at this photo and we pick out this one that obviously does not fit in this album at all. It had been stuffed in there. And we're like, well, what is your name? Because this one, unfortunately, didn't have any information on the back of it. And out of the spirit box comes Stuart. So we refer to that man from that one photo as Stuart, and Libby is the woman in the photo. So those are the two so far. No one else has really revealed themselves. We've tried that, that kind of technique again, showing the photos, a few times after that. No one else has really come through yet, but so far, so it happens. It totally happens. But I think you can kind of connect to some of the people too if you stare at a photo long enough. I think all photos are kind of energetic little. That's just my opinion.
Well, I know among some indigenous people, they feel like it takes part of your soul. So I suppose we're all kind of soulless in the selfie world at this point.
Sure, yeah.
That's a really fascinating story. And Libby is not a common name. It'd be different if it was like, Mary. And so when the spirit box or something has a different name than normal, then it seems easier to believe, I would say, or give it credit. So you have also mentioned in the first episode, I think I've talked to you, Hillary, about the dreams before, that you have vivid dreams, and you were talking about your elevator dream in your first episode. And what I wanted to ask you is, I don't know if I asked you this before, but I actually have dreams of ghosts in real apartments around me. So for instance, I had a dream once where my upstairs neighbor, it was her real apartment, and there are all these ghosts coming and going. And I was really tired. And then none of them seemed scary. And I thought, well, should I tell her that? And I said, no, I'm not going to tell her. I don't feel, good. I don't know. I didn't feel a connection to tell her. But I've had it happen more than once where I've had a dream of a ghost in a place I'm living or close to. And have you ever had something like that for yourself? Either of you?
Yeah, there is a really vivid example. I think this would be my go-to example, that. Oh my gosh. So I guess the little bit of backstory, I had spent a day with one of my friends. We went to this cemetery. It's a newer cemetery. So there's it's a huge cemetery. So there's family members there all the time and a lot of more current burials. So rather than like one of the older Victorian or, spookier cemeteries that we hang around, this was a little different experience. So we had spent a whole day at the cemetery and in this big, beautiful mausoleum that is like a world-renowned collection of stained glass. And so you can wander around through there, and we had been there all day and had a couple little moments where I felt like I was picking up on something, and nothing too remarkable happened while we were there. But that night I went home and I was feeling very strange, and I was feeling very like alert and like, oh boy, here we go. Like I must have brought something home. If not a spirit, I brought home some kind of energy or something. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I went to bed. I had a very restless night of sleep, and I had this very vivid dream, and it took place in my basement in the house I'm living in right now. And I was like, oh, there's that crow. That is such a lovely noise. Sorry. I love crows.
She's got a big voice.
I loved it. Sorry. But so it was like I was in my basement and I was like having my photos taken, and there was these two people, and somehow I interpreted them as these are ghosts. I didn't know them, didn't know why they were there. And I can remember what they look like so vividly, not so much their facial features, but what they looked like, what they were sort of wearing, their, it was very interesting. And they were like helping me take pictures of myself for my paranormal project. It's like, people will like
Huh.
this. These will look really good. You're doing a really good job. And I was like, thank you. I really appreciate that. But there was a man and a woman, and the man was very grumpy at me. And the woman was like, this is hilarious. This is so funny that you think this is so cute. I'm just so amused by this. And I had told my friend the next day about it, who I had spent the day with, and we had both kind of come to that conclusion, like, that was very odd. That felt like I brought something home, and I slept good the next day, didn't have that feeling again. It was just a one night thing, but it was so vivid. It stuck out as one of those experiences. We said that though.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like what I'm talking about. And the only thing with me is I don't know what sets it off, because it's usually around where I'm living. So I'm wondering if it might be just something in the season, or, it's random. It's not like going to a place and coming back. So, but I thought you probably had some similar experiences.
Yeah, there's no control over it. I don't have any control. It just really, honestly. And that's why I feel like I'm either maybe a broken medium, or I even have kind of like felt like I don't like that word anymore, because it's all random and unpredictable. I am just the conduit. It just happens. We don't know. I don't know.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. You are not a broken medium, because one of my sort of pet peeves, being in the psychic world since I was a teenager and going from quite gullible to much more discriminating, I personally have not found really enough examples of people that can control things. And so even Edgar Cayce, who probably is the most documented, famous, amazing clairvoyant, he went into a place where he didn't even know what he was saying, and someone else had to actually record what he was saying. Though I think at the end of his life, he started to see things clairvoyantly while he was awake. And this was a deeply religious man too, a very special kind of person. So in my own experience, and I think Michael would agree, is any psychic phenomena you cannot control how strong it is. So if I sit down and do a tarot card reading, I do sometimes have more rapport with some people more than others, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you're a broken medium. I think you're being honest. And I think it's just by being honest about it and open, I think people can develop it better. Again, that beginner's mind, that if we just are open with, okay, this is what's happening, I'm not sure why it only happens here or there, I feel like that's a healthier direction to develop things.
I completely agree. I think with anything, any subject, psychic, paranormal stuff aside, any subject, you have to keep in kind of a permanent student mentality, or at least that's what I try and embody for myself. That so much of life is constant learning. I have come to at this stage in my life, in my personal development, equate life with learning and movement and the bliss that comes from that. And I think that, kind of keeping your ego out of it is a challenging thing. But, I don't know, if you can just remain humble and a permanent student and open and just digesting and absorbing new information all the time. I think that's been, one of the reasons why we've been so, successful and had so much fun so far in our investigations endeavors.
Yeah, and the fun part is really important too, because, we're still dealing with sometimes difficult or sad or tragic or even scary events, whether they've happened in the past or recently. And I think keeping humor and fun is a good idea just for your own mental health.
Oh, absolutely. And one of our little tenets, or our part of our motto is, it's help for those, answers for those who seek, help for those in need, and light for those lost in darkness. And that was always to me kind of a reference to emotions and mental health. And there is always life and excitement and pleasure and joy and friendship and magic out, on the end or on the other end of the tunnel of any dark experience, no matter what it is. That's part of our, human journey, all of us. And that's, something that we enjoy. Kind of, it's like we're there. Jessica and I are there together. She's been here for me through so many of my struggles recently, and I just love her to death. But there's, light and life and new things, no matter how horrible anything is. And so I think that kind of has seeped into even, the work we've done before. I think that was always kind of the energy we were trying, striving to bring into our investigations or working with spirits or approaching different spirits. And, I think as we've grown here, we even have a deeper level of empathy and kind of um, I don't know, a sympathy that allows us to get in there and understand something, but then also kind of take, a positive grain or a lesson from it, or isn't this beautiful? Some beautiful token from our experiences too, because of that.
It's all just part of the story of life and death, and learning to walk together with both of them, I think, is really important. And like you said, having that sense of openness and adventure. And we don't know anything about the mind, let alone about really the different worlds when we think of what's possible. We only know a little bit. Even, psychology will say that. So why would we know about these other spaces that we're just beginning to understand how to even connect to?
Exactly. It's an open expanse.
It is. Now, I was thinking myself recently about with the pandemic and there being not, that the death that's happening right now, the fear, and also the natural inclination to look back at past pandemics to learn from it, such as the Spanish flu. I was wondering recently if this would stir up any old ghosts or spirits connected to a similar past events that have not really found any peace. And I was wondering what you both thought of that.
No, I haven't really thought about it that way, but it makes sense. I know, like for me, my main, I guess, almost a concern out of the whole thing is that, so many people that are losing loved ones aren't going to be able to mourn them appropriately. So I think that, there's going to be some unsettling going on in both realms, essentially, just because folks aren't, able to say goodbye or mourn the appropriate ways like we would normally do so. So I think there's going to be a lot of open doors and loose ends in regards to what's currently going on. And those that are, that are currently passing away or losing loved ones. But that's a really interesting take, though. I haven't thought of that because I've been so focused and concerned about the current state, but that's a very, very interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, I only started thinking about it recently. I don't know. I was just, pondering the whole thing and for myself. And then it feels like sometimes there's sometimes a bleed over of time. In my experience, that time doesn't always exist like we think it is, and that you can kind of almost touch back into other time periods if you're going through something similar. And yeah, the trauma of how people are leaving is very tragic and unbearable. I mean, it's very hard to hear that, where they can't, be with their loved ones, and where normally if you're sick, you can, it's not like an accident. But that's just, I only started thinking about it recently because most of the time, like many of us, were just kind of like trying to get through the day and sort of see what's coming after that.
That is interesting, though. I've wondered, like, too, Jessica and I have been thinking about, people being in homes or like, being at home more, and wondering if, there might be like relatives that pop up more to say hello since you're home and not, as distracted as you might be. Or even, some people who are living in some potentially haunted houses too. I'm wondering if we might hear a lot of stories, a lot of paranormal stories coming out of this isolation period too. That's another thing I've thought about, at least.
That's a good point because, and some people have jobs where they need to be away from home a lot. And so for some people, it's probably a mixed thing. They're home some of the time anyway, but all of us having to really settle into one place and really be at a place might see and hear things we normally would not, or they could stir it up more. But I also thought maybe the emotions could be stirring things up a little bit just because of the nature of the beast being so powerful, the emotions, because it's a global thing that's going on and people are feeling sometimes things instantaneously at the same time, because of technology, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there will be more stories after this, and we'll have to see, and also maybe from the healthcare workers, what's going on because of I know there's a book on, even a whole book where they've collected stories of what doctors and nurses have seen when people are about to die. and I forget the name, but it's been around for a while. So I can't imagine that maybe this might shift. We're talking about how our world is shifting, and it can't
Mhm.
really. It has to change because we can't go back anymore. And I wonder if that means the paranormal world will shift as well.
I remember one of the first, I think it was the first time we had a conversation. I don't think we were recording, but you had said something to me that I've always remembered. And you said that I think it was in 2025, you were anticipating that there would be a more global openness to paranormal phenomenon, or at least a larger interest. Even though there's a very large interest now, more of kind of a, I don't know, mainstream interest. I don't exactly remember the words that you said, but I've always kind of remembered that. And I thought, I'm interested to see what causes the shift, because that's just something that, not so much the year, but I've always just felt like in my gut, like we're, experiencing a similar, not literally, but a similar time period, or to, experiences to what many of the Victorians who got into a lot of occult topics and spiritualism and things like
Mhm.
that. And we're seeing a lot of that with the technological revolution happening now too. So I'm interested to see how, the modern, or what the modern take or the modern mainstreaming of some of this paranormal interest looks like over the next couple years. So I'm wondering if maybe some of, what's happening now in the world is part of that shift.
It could be. I hadn't thought of it. There's all kinds of catalysts that start things off, and this certainly is one that could, based on just the amount of death and also death in terms of change. The fact that our lives are being forced to change, and often I think for the better, personally. And we were
Mhm.
talking on. I was talking on my last little show about how the Earth is healing and the pollution is less and animals are coming out that haven't been able to come out, and how that's an odd blessing because we're all settled down for a while.
Yeah.
And how if we can embrace the idea that the earth can actually change more quickly than we thought it could, then that's another, like, more of a, I guess, a life-giving change. And
Mhm.
um so that, but life and death, they seem to go together.
Yes. Like a nice pair of salt and pepper shakers.
Yes, they you have you ever noticed? I noticed this. I was going through a period where there's if you're in a lot of death, if you look around you, you'll see symbols of birth kind of in the background. So an example of that was my mother died kind of suddenly, and we were coming back, I think, from Sonoma where she'd lived, and there were all these like lambs and babies, and I noticed in other ways there were a lot of babies around, and they were all kind of in the background. And I thought, oh, yeah, they're together, like literally. And so if you kind of look and which one's more dominant, you'll see kind of the other one around in some form.
Is a beautiful matching there. Yeah.
It makes it easier to handle, both of them, really, especially if you when you see that they're just part of the same thing on some level. And certainly that's not to take away any kind of grief people go through. Michael, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, just a quick question for Hillary and Jessica. And I expect, of course, there are a few people, not to mention people running the country, who lack empathy. But again, I think most ghost hunters I've met, or paranormal, enthusiasts, have a lot of empathy. And I think the two kind of go hand in hand. And I guess an interesting question for you guys is, when you're involved so much with all of this stuff, there's so much emotional component to it. You're dealing with tragic stories sometimes, or heartbreaking stories sometimes. And so how do you guys actually process and handle the emotional part of what you do?
Jessica, do you want to start? Yeah.
I was like, oh, that one.
Here we go.
So I think, like, be totally honest and open. Um, After our huge hustle that we put in, like in October, we kind of like slowed things down because we needed a lot, just for our own mental state, to just take a break and step away, for a short period of time, just to digest, because we put a lot on us in a very short period of time. And it's exhausting. It's physically exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. And it was very draining. So that's one, like Hillary mentioned earlier, one really good thing to come out of this is, like, we're kind of like I'm not working right now, so we can put our full focus full steam ahead into Mystic Mitten and just pick back up everything that we've started, a few months ago, and just really hustle and go into that going forward. But it is exhausting, and after doing an investigation, like there is no sleep as sound as after that, because I'm just so physically and mentally tired that, and we need to take like a short, even if it's like just a couple days break in between, before even discussing it and trying to digest, what we just experienced, just because it is so draining, definitely.
You know, it's interesting, and this is something that I think maybe it's like now I'm speaking about it in hindsight a little bit too. We early on to reference our openness again too. We've always approached things with very uh I don't know, open gung ho. We'll just take it what it is. Whatever happens, that's fine. And we did a lot very fast. We did a lot of investigations. We got immersed in a lot of stories. We met a lot of people. And I don't think I ever realized how sensitive I am to some of, more energy than the stories necessarily. But I have, been recently doing a lot of working and practicing to kind of learn how to pace myself with our work. And what I think affects me the most has been coming to terms with the fact that I really can't, control a lot of the things that happen to me, and so that as far as the contact or the paranormal experiences or the spirit communication goes, I don't have as much control over that as I think I liked to lead myself to believe previously. And I had a very intense break. It wasn't related to our work. Now it's kind of related just by proxy because I'm coming out of it, and we're finding so much joy, and it's positively impacting the way we are going to work now, the way we're going to approach these things. But I had a very very intense crack. I'm a domestic violence survivor, just for full transparency, and I had been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder without realizing it. And so there have been a lot of different tools that I've learned from just kind of, even like Western traditional mental health help that have kind of illuminated some, different guarding techniques, or, really helped me be aware of how I should be protecting my energy now. So I don't think that Jessica or I are too affected by anything too sad. I think I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm, you know, somebody who's kind of, I feel like I try and be someone who's turned myself around despite all the things that have happened to me, and have really been able to cultivate a beautiful life for myself. And I try and, um, live from a place of encouraging other people to believe that that's possible for themselves too, whatever that looks like. So, we're getting there, but we are very affected, and it is something that I think we need to approach with a little more caution in the future.
I'm really sorry to hear about your background with domestic violence. Unfortunately, it's still such a problem. And in fact, it's gotten worse in the pandemic. And I applaud you for, dealing with things head on and working on still being, free from your past in a sense, because you can always make the future the way you want it, is how I see it.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And so interesting enough, though you both deal in the past, you probably both know too that at some point, no matter what our histories are, we have to embrace what we want our future to be, whether we reach it all or not.
Yeah.
Envision what we want, which is important. Is that's your dog?
Yeah, so I'm so sorry. Yeah, this is the downside of the lockdown too. We're stuck in here with these dogs that bark at everything that happens.
Now, is your dog's name Lily?
Yes.
That's our crow's name, Lily.
Oh,
That's so funny.
See?
Another little link for us.
Yes. I love it.
So, have either of you watched any good paranormal shows lately, or episodes that you got excited about and for, to be inspired by or do something because of the show?
I personally enjoy Paranormal Caught on Camera, because there's a lot on that show that I'm like, oh, that's not what that is. That's, a smear on the glass in the car window, or something else that I'm able to put my brain into work to try to debunk. But then there's other things on that show too where I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually something. I get all freaked out and I get goosebumps. And that's my new personal favorite is Paranormal Caught on Camera, just because there's so much going on and it's all small little segments, so it doesn't need like your full concentration, which is an issue for me, which is why I've never been a fan of like sitcoms or like TV shows where you have to follow a storyline. I just like background noise. So that one is my personal favorite that I've been enjoying immensely since the lockdown. Making sure that my travel channel is always tuned on. I have like 3 channels that I watch on TV: A&E, Travel Channel, and Animal Planet.
Oh, Animal Planet too. Yes. Yeah, I watched that a little bit. I've seen a couple of things, and I'm always like, I can't debunk it. I go, is that real or not? And it's good that you can because you work with the equipment and things like that, or you have the brain for it. But that is kind of a fun show. How about you, Hillary?
Oh, I'm sorry. They're barking again. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I haven't been watching a lot of TV in this period, honestly. I've been watching some movies and I haven't been sitting down to watch any paranormal stuff, over the past couple months. Honestly, I've been doing a lot more reading. I've been reading a book about some poltergeist cases, an investigator from California. I think the book is from the 60s. I just bought it from an antiquer. And so I've been reading that, and I've been also kind of getting into some different kind of philosophy books. And I actually just bought a copy of Magic in Theory and Practice, and I saw you and you guys, your video was like the #1 result when I went to go buy that book. And I was like, I know them. This is so cool.
Yeah, that was our book review show on Aleister Crowley's book. And he's hugely popular. And we didn't really realize even a book review would be that popular. We just love the book, and I'm definitely an avid reader in general. I just read all kinds of things. So it's great that you're taking the time to read as well. And it's good to get away from television too, I think, overall. And I've been definitely reading more and also just trying to relax, through all of this. It's a good idea to take some just downtime and not feel like you have to be productive, which is part of it seems like part of the Western problem is that idea we always have to produce no matter what. And people, for instance, won't take vacations when they can take vacations. Mm-hmm. See, yep. Your dogs agree. So I know we're getting a little closer to the end, so I wanted to make sure that people knew how to contact you. And it seems to me one of the best places to start is your website, mysticmitten.org. I noticed there's a lot of links there to all the different Instagram and your YouTube channel. So that's Mystic, MysticMitten.org. And then, of course, you're on YouTube, Mystic Mitten Paranormal, which is you guys do a great show. I always, compliment you on the quality of how you produce your show, and it's very entertaining. And then Instagram, you can follow them at Mystic Mitten Paranormal. And there's also at Haunted Hillary and at Jessica Crutel. I should probably say at the end, it's MMPG. What is the MMPG? I was curious.
Mystic Mitten Paranormal Group.
Oh my God, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
I miss the obvious sometimes. And then on Facebook so that they can contact you. And I know that you are a nonprofit and you investigate once you get up and we all get up and running, whenever that is, you go and investigate for free. So in Michigan. So is there anything you'd like to talk about in the last few minutes that's just on your mind about the paranormal or ghosts or spirits in general?
Oh boy, this is a can of worms.
We can talk about in a few minutes. That's the issue.
I am just excited. I have seen, I think that, something that Jessica and I can both even just, over the last couple years, I think it's been very positive. We have been able to connect with so many people through sharing experiences and just kind of being there to listen and be, kind of the receivers of a lot of different stories. Like, oh, you're probably most people would think I'm crazy, but let me tell you about what happened to me. And we've made so many friendships and connections. And so there's so much positivity in the community surrounding, I guess, the interest in ghosts and the paranormal and supernatural stuff or psychic stuff. And so, I'm just excited about the future, and hoping that people who have some time to read books or watch TV, or, you know, people who might be new to some of this stuff might be finding some passion or excitement and might be interested in doing more research themselves or going out to explore some places when lockdown is over themselves too. So that's what I'm excited about.
And yesterday, I missed it, but yesterday was Paranormal Day. Is that correct? And there was like, I saw the end of it, live streaming with different people in the paranormal. Was that something? I think you guys were involved with it a little bit, right?
That is correct. Yes. So that would have been last Sunday. So May 3rd is National Paranormal Day. We were able to partner with Haunt Jaunts as well as Haunted Magazine. And the other one is a mouthful, but it's Haunted Antiques and Paranormal Research Center, which is actually located out of the UK. And they put together a online Paracon, essentially, so folks would be able to still kind of have that feeling of going to a Paracon, you know, meet new friends, learn some new ideas, or just even like premiering new videos and new content. Just really a nice safe haven and give everybody, including us, something to do. So we have put together a presentation in regards to photography and photographs and how it's so important to preserve them. Which was part of the event, which was really, really cool. So it was a great way for us to get to not only get our name out, but we were able to make connections around the world, which is awesome. And to kind of like trail off of what Hillary was saying, you know, we've met so many amazing people ever since we started this. And it's just a really great opportunity, you know, for us to make new friends around the world and to have new connections and contacts and share ideas and opinions and thoughts. Techniques with such an open community, and to be able to have those contacts to go to is a really awesome and wonderful tool. So we're incredibly thankful that we were part of that program, because it did give us access and new acquaintances that could really blossom into a great new friendship for us, which is like one thing that I get like so excited about, because I love being able to have friends that, you know, that are going to understand it and they've been there, and to be able to put their insight too. So it was a really cool program. And then actually this upcoming weekend, we're going to be part of another one that is going to be running sort of similarly, but this one's actually a 24-hour streamathon that's going to be put out by Paranormal Encounters on YouTube. And this one's awesome because it's also a fundraiser. So they've set up a GoFundMe account for a suicide awareness program here in America, which is really cool. So they'll be able to collect donations to go to a cause that obviously Hillary and myself are both very passionate about. And May is Mental Awareness Month too, so it's perfect time for that. And I keep saying, you know, our physical health is very important right now too, but we also need to not forget about our own mental health. So it's important for Hillary and I to keep having these little tasks too, because I think it's helping us stay focused and keep us, you know, inspired and excited and motivated to even do something as little as putting on my makeup. So thank you guys so much for being my reason to get dressed and do my hair and makeup today.
Well, you're our reason too. It's mutual. We were looking forward to it. Now, what day of the weekend is this on? Is it on Saturday and Sunday, or
this Saturday? It's going to start this Saturday at our time, 9 a.m. and run for 24 hours. So Saturday morning until Sunday morning at 9 a.m.
That's awesome.
We'll be sharing it on our Facebook page as well as our Instagram too, and it will be like a live stream. Where Paranormal Encounters is going to be setting up a very similar meeting like how we're set up right now currently. And they're just going to be having different paranormal groups pop in for our time slots throughout the whole thing. So we'll be on at 7 o'clock our time.
7 a.m. or p.m.? PM. Oh, that was because it starts at 9 a.m. Right. Okay, great. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because then I can definitely check it out. And I missed the other one. I was like, drat, you know, I got to get used to the dates for the paranormal world too now. There's a lot going on Instagram. I'm still getting focused on how to get focused on what I really want to be focused on and not get distracted. But anyway, thank you, ladies, both for being with us again today. We both wish you well during this pandemic, and thank you for sharing all of your thoughts so openly. And we hope you have a great May.
You too.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
As always. And thank you all for listening and for subscribing, and like us if you like the video. Until next time, keep exploring the esoteric and the obscure. Have a great week.